Hi, everyone. We're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Donnelly.
And I'm Dr. Hinson.
And we are here to talk to you about episode 8 of the second season of Netflix's The Crown, entitled Dear Mrs. Kennedy.
Yes. And as we just discussed, I'm going to do the recap because Dr. Donnelly writes emotions and I write plot lines.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do some of the recap and then we'll get into the emotional part of it, which is basically we don't understand why this episode needed to happen. So this is the episode where the Kennedys come. The episode doesn't start with the episode doesn't start with the Kennedys. The episode starts in Ghana, where the Ghanaian leader is promoting a socialist Africa, and we see the Queen's portrait being taken down. So when this episode started, I was like, I don't know why it's called Dear Mrs. Kennedy, but if you're going to talk about the death of colonialism and the rise of independent countries in Africa, I'm here for it. Lol.
Sorry, Dr. Hinson. Sorry.
Lol, did they talk about something that would actually interest me? But the Queen is aging, and she's starting to at the time, she's getting a little bit older. I don't really know how old, but she's starting to feel old. At the time where Jackie Kennedy has risen to great international prominence as President Kennedy has taken office in 1961, 1960?
61. He's assassinated in 63.
In 63, yeah. I couldn't remember if he took office in 61 or 60.
Yeah, the election was 60, yeah.
Yes. We're starting to see Russian involvement in Ghana, which I would have found really interesting, but they don't really spend a lot of time with. So Brezhnev visits Ghana, and then the PM goes to the Queen and is like, shit's happening in Ghana. But also the Kennedys are on a European tour. So they're in all over places. They just lit up Paris, and they're coming to England, and they're going to visit the Queen, and they're going to have a big fancy state dinner. And then things ensue. The Queen and Jackie seem to get on pretty well, and then Jackie goes to some friend's house for dinner 2 weeks later, whatever, and says all these horrible, mean things about the Queen, that the Queen's cousin was at the blah blah blah. Gets back to the Queen, and we get to see a little bit more about the vanity of Elizabeth, and that would hurt. That would be really hurtful. You thought you connected with this person, and then she turns around and says that you're dotty and old and boring. And she's always been a painfully shy young woman. She never wanted to be this face of the monarchy. So we get to see a little bit about that, which I thought was interesting. And in light of this, the episode tells us that, spurred by the horrible things that Jackie Kennedy said, she decides she's going to visit Ghana against the advice of anyone in her government and household and family.
Sure, I believe that.
Decides to go, and everyone's really nervous and really anxious about what she's going to do. She's not treated very respectfully by the Ghanaian king until she decides to dance with him. And then she uses her charms to charm him into agreeing to whatever. I don't know.
Stay a part of the Commonwealth.
Stay a part of that's it. Yeah. Not go the way of Russia. And then Jackie, decides to come back and wants to visit the Queen again. So the Queen sits her down at Windsor Castle. She apologizes and then has this whole long explanation for all the medication that her and Jack are on. And I don't know if that was a real thing or not, but who says all of these, that basically they're on amphetamines all the time. And I can't be responsible for the things that I say. I don't know. So the Queen, it starts to feel sympathy for Jackie Kennedy and realize that she's also in a very difficult marriage and a difficult political position. And then the Kennedy assassination happens, and that's pretty much the end of the episode. Obviously, the world was shook by what happened. The Queen is very shook by what happened and decides to demand a full week of royal mourning. In light of the Kennedy assassination, and writes her, at the end of the episode, sits down to write her a personal letter of condolence, hence the Dear Mrs. Kennedy. I don't know what the heck this episode was.
So here's what we know is historically accurate.
Yes, let's go with that first.
The Kennedys had a state dinner in
Mhm.
London in 1961.
Yep, they visited the Queen.
The Queen and Jackie became friendly enough to correspond, and for Jackie to eventually invite the Queen to the dedication of a memorial to President Kennedy in like the late 60s.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
And the Queen went.
Lovely.
Like maybe 66, 67, something like that. But
Sure.
Queen went. We know that the Queen was part of why Ghana didn't split off.
Is the Eternal Flame, is that Kennedy's memorial?
No, that's the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
But I think there's like some kind of flame for him as well, if I remember.
There is, but I think the Eternal Flame is the Unknown Soldier.
Yeah. So maybe it was
he's buried in our.
Yeah. And I think there's a flame there because I've been to Arlington.
It could be. Hold on.
Anyway.
Real life Googling. Killing time as we Google. No, all I got in my notes is a memorial to JFK. Oh no, excuse me, it's the other way around. The Queen invited Jackie and the kids to the dedication of a memorial for JFK in England.
Oh, how interesting.
So my notes, I read my notes wrong. Apologies, dear viewers.
That's even more interesting.
And there's a British Pathé clip of it on the YouTubes.
Cool. I'm gonna have to look that up when we're done filming. But yes, Ghana. You were talking about Ghana before.
Yeah, so we know that she was part of that. We
Yeah.
do know that Ghana is still part of the Commonwealth, and that Ghana and a lot of the many of the colonies that that England owned in Africa, independence happened fairly bloodlessly, and a lot of that is because the English did not ever want to do what they did in India ever again.
Yeah, that was a pretty severe lesson.
Seriously. And Elizabeth especially did not want to go through what her father went through with India.
Right.
So there was a whole lot more diplomacy. There was a lot more like socialism. That's where this Commonwealth idea came from. Like, well, you can still be part of us, but I won't have direct rule over you. And taxes don't go to me, stuff like that. They should have, by the way, learned this lesson in 1776 when we reminded them that taxation without representation is unlawful. But
and they saw the results of a epic failure of a colonial experiment in the Americas.
Yeah, we opened up a big old can of whoop ass at the Battle of Yorktown. So,
but sometimes lessons take a long time to learn.
Sometimes we are slow learners. Victoria especially was not really interested in learning lessons globally.
We are slow learners with history. But yeah, we do know that happened.
So that's it. Beyond that, this episode is a giant pile of made up stuff from what I can tell. Here are my main problems. One, I do not believe that Jackie Kennedy is that dumb.
No.
To gossip about the Queen.
In England. At a party where there have to be people that she knows. There have to be people there that know the Queen.
Yeah, I just don't believe she's that dumb.
No.
If this is who Jackie Kennedy was, every lesson I've ever been taught about Camelot is a lie.
Is wrong. It was so incongruous to what we know of Jackie Kennedy.
And like, yes, we all know their marriage was hard and awful because he was a serial cheater.
Yeah.
And lied to her a lot. I'm not sure I buy that their marriage was powered by amphetamines.
That scene with the two of them where they were like getting injected with the drugs and like.
Yeah, I was like, can someone, like Doris Kearns Goodwin, tell me if this is true. Like.
Presidential historians. We're calling all presidential historians.
What is this? I mean, I've never heard, certainly it's the 60s. They use drugs. Duh.
Yeah.
But like this level, I don't believe.
Maybe they did. I don't know.
Maybe they did. But I don't feel like I can learn that from The Crown and trust it.
I'm going to ask Google.
What are you going to Google? Were the Kennedys drug addicts?
Did the Kennedys use amphetamines? I'm going to ask Google.
Okay. I also don't love this notion that it was Jackie Kennedy that forced Elizabeth to act in Ghana. I don't love. This show seems to really want to portray Elizabeth as weak and very malleable by other people. And I mean, I understand that I came into the world when Lizzie was, in her 70s, but being shy and being weak are two different things. And I think this show thinks they're the same thing.
Yeah.
And I don't love that.
No.
She was a smart cookie who we know has been schooled, and they would have taught her about colonialism. She would have talked to her dad about India. Like, she's not an idiot. The things that she wasn't great with were like the technological changes and the things that Philip had to do for her. Actual diplomacy, we have no evidence that she was ever bad at it.
Yeah, and that's what I don't like this story at all, because it puts the agency on, it makes her reactionary.
Yeah, but that's what the show does. It always makes her reactionary. So, now we're going to make her reactionary to a younger, more beautiful woman. And cool, I hear that is a very real thing for older women. I am not old enough to know what that feels like, because you can pay me to go back to my 20s. But that's a very real thing. Cool.
And I think they wanted to show her vulnerability and show her humanity, because they're always trying to give us glimpses of that.
And she has a husband who cheats on her all the time too, for all we know. So Jackie Kennedy's stunning. I don't know. I don't buy a lot of what this episode was selling.
I found an article, shockingly, when you Google where the Kennedys using drugs is the first thing that comes up on Google. There's a lot of evidence to show that the former American president was on drugs while in office due to a raft of medical problems that he suffered from since he was a child. According to historian Robert Dallek, who examined the leader's medical records, JFK was on a whole host of medicines ranging from painkillers to stimulants for his various ailments. The expert looked at the president's health problems after he was given exclusive access to documents, including x-rays and prescription medication records. According to Dallek, JFK's health problems included colitis, prostatitis, Addison's disease, and osteoporosis, which caused him crippling lower back pain and made the simplest of tasks arduous.
So I now buy that he was on morphine. Where is Jackie in that? This episode sold those off as pleasure drugs.
On amphetamines, to keep them and Jackie mentioned that he's in pain. I think she did when she apologized, but that's not what they showed us.
Mm-mm. And also, just hot minute, Michael C. Hall as JFK. You've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me.
Nope, it's a no from me.
It's a no from me.
That was a terrible decision.
Terrible casting. Who owed what favor for that to happen? Inappropriate.
Yeah. Is he best friends with one of the writers? And they were like, I want my friend Michael in this. No.
And he's a great actor. This is not his part. No, it took me out of it so hard. Every time he was on the screen, I was like, you are not JFK.
He looks so much like himself.
Yep. And he doesn't look like JFK.
And he doesn't look like JFK. Yeah. So I was just like, oh, it's Michael C. Hall. Yeah, it totally took me out of it. I agree.
Oh, great. Dexter's shooting up. Sounds good.
Not great casting, The Crown. I know you're terribly concerned with all of our notes, but...
I am 100% sure that Claire Foy has this bookmarked.
Yeah. The writers of the show definitely are one of our subscribers to the YouTube channel.
I think that's really, I just found this episode useless because it was so outside of anything helpful. I just sat, this was the look on my face for most of the episode.
What did it tell us? What did we need to know from this episode?
And I agree. I think when I heard they were covering way back when they were covering the 60s, the shifting of colonial power, something I really hoped that they were going to cover, because I've only ever read academic works on it or works from the perspective of the colonized. I actually haven't ever dug into what it was like for the British royal family or the British government to deal with these things, mostly because I haven't cared up to this point. But it would have been really interesting, because when you look at how Belgium handled Rwanda
Whoa.
versus how and Germany handled Rwanda versus how everybody else handled, how the British and the French handled Kenya and Tanzania.
Yeah.
It's a whole different ball game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And right around this time too is when we get the rise of apartheid.
Right.
Are we going to talk about that? No? Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like the start of the episode was just like a false promise that we were going to get something besides stupid Tory politics and Margaret whinging. And then they gave us this weird episode about the Kennedys doing drugs and hating on Elizabeth. And I was like, what? Why am I spending 55 minutes of my day watching this?
Also, I'm so tired of the narrative that all women are in competition with each other and that women can't authentically be friends. I'm sick of it. And that's why this episode felt to me like a manufactured one, because it was like, oh, this fits into every single trope of powerful women.
Yeah, and so it was cheap. It was cheap tropes, and nothing that we know about Elizabeth or Jackie's personalities, which have been written about extensively.
A lot. I did a book report once, yeah.
Would lead us to believe that this is how they would behave.
So largely, episode 8 is a no from me.
And it's a no from me.
Fingers crossed that episode 9 isn't.
Yeah. It's episode 9's a doozy. So I think we'll have a lot more to say. We get some really interesting insights in that one. Not about the Queen, God forbid.
Heaven forbid.
I think episode 9 continues our fascination with Prince Philip. But it's a fascinating episode. It's really, really interesting. So we'll have lots more to say about that isn't fact-checking on Google and reading historical reviews and recaps of the episode. But for now, that's all we've got for you. I'm Dr. Hinson.
And I'm Dr. Donnelly.
We're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research, and we will see you for episode 9.
Toodles.
Bye.